Welcome! Welcome to Hug Nation. And the topic of today is money, wealth, abundance. So what I wanted to talk to you about is an exciting product line. And if you can get in now on my downline, you could be making thousands of dollars just folding envelopes at home. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I don't really have anything to sell. But I wanted to talk a little bit about money for a few reasons. One is that the economy, as it is wont to do, has thrown us a bit of a scary. We had a little stock market freak out. The U.S. rating was reduced, and while I certainly am not qualified to speak to any of these things with any sort of expertise, I certainly do feel qualified to speak to the topic of the feelings and the fear and the reactions that we have to any information like that, whether that be, well, I think the key thing in this situation is trying to separate the fears from the reality. We get so caught up in the chasing of financial rewards, abundance, that it becomes, sometimes we forget why we're doing that. And I know we think we know why, and it feels like we know why, but it becomes so much part of our pattern that we need more, we need more, we need more, that sometimes it's good to just take a step back and question, well, why? We're often working to acquire resources so that we can live. And in the live category, the way we define that determines how much resources we need. And sometimes, once we have our needs met, I mean, if you are struggling and are struggling to keep a roof over your head, it's just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that if you do not have enough financial resources to get your basic needs met, that can be very scary. Especially when we have a cultural story that becoming homeless is kind of like our hell. We talk about this homeless situation, this when we lack resources and we become homeless, as kind of really a fate worse than death at sometimes. And a lot of people are governed by a fear of it. It is so powerful that even if you have money in the bank, even if you have a network of support, even if you have a pink motorhome that you could sleep in if you needed to, you still get caught up in this fear of, what if I lose that? What if I don't have that? What if something happens and then I have to become homeless? For me, one of the things I snap back into, one of the tools I use to kind of correct my fear if I slip into that mode, is to remind myself that, what if? What if I had to live under the bridge? And if you sit with it, and you look into cultures around the world, if you look into the standard of living in many parts of this amazing planet, being homeless in the United States is not suffering. We have overpasses to sleep under. We have dumpsters to dig through. We have social programs like crazy, and we have amazing people in religious organizations and otherwise that do all sorts of effort to try to alleviate the burden on people who are struggling. The homeless let me take a step back. I'm not speaking as a sociologist or a politician or anyone with a statistical knowledge of any of these things. My experience interacting with people who are homeless is that there are a lot of opportunities to stay fed, to stay warm. Is it going to be a struggle? Is there a possibility that you're going to not have those things? Yes, but there is a lot of opportunities, especially when you consider compared to the world. So for me, just acknowledging that if that happened, I'd survive. And that can be very calming. That can be very much take enough of the sting and the bite out of that potential that I can kind of relax and let go of this fear thought. We also have a very abstract fear thought of security. And so as I was looking at kind of message boards and threads in the wake of the stock market drop, and I saw these people talking about the losses that they were having, there's two kind of mentalities I saw. One is kind of this game mentality of feeling like, you've been playing the game, you've been acquiring points, and oh man, you got a penalty and it dropped you all this, and now your score is reduced by this. That sucks. Unfair and rah, 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 rah. And you know what? That's kind of fine, especially if you know that you're playing a game, and if you can remind yourself that that is what you're doing. Nothing wrong with getting passionate about a game when you know that it's a game. Nothing wrong with when you're playing soccer, getting heated and trying to win and struggling and just pushing yourself to try to get that goal. But if it comes to the point where you are panicked, if you are, and you need to be able to go, whoa, I'm playing soccer. This is not who I am. This isn't what really matters. Nothing that can happen here can affect who I really am and the riches that I truly have. The security aspect is the part that I think takes good reminders, and it's important to go, look, it is nice to have a nest egg. It is nice to have a buffer. It is important to live within your means. And if you can put some away, that is awesome. But there's a certain population of people that get to a point where they have a bunch put away, and then they are simply trying to build that nest egg. Now, I have the luxury of not having a family, and have been pretty smart with how I spend money. I'm pretty frugal, so I have a little bit of cushion in the bank. And so I very much am one who falls into this fear sometimes of what if, what if, what if. And I have to practice this, just like I'm saying right now, because every time I'm talking in Hug Nation, I'm saying something that I need to hear. I have to practice this. It's okay. And there's no such thing as security. And truthfully, it's just like when I was saying the hero dies one death and a coward dies 1,000. Every time you freak out about what if I lose that, you are using your imagination for the powers of evil. And you're creating this scenario that does not exist yet, and yet you're suffering before it ever happens. What if, what if, what if? Well, we'll figure it out. But if, even as things are good, if you are living in this fear place, then it hardly matters. You've already lost it because you are living in a fear. Now, the culture and the news and even the investment shows, it all kind of feeds into that and really encourages us to live in that fear place. I had an experience occasionally, and often I try to share the way my head goes through some of these ideas. I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm trying to speak from a place of authority or from I'm trying to speak as someone who is walking the path and sharing the stumbles and the lessons and the things that help me as I go. So a couple weeks ago, I was sitting down with Dimitri at lunch. We took a break from work, and we are building a startup company, and it is exciting, and it is fun, and it is scary at times, and there's all sorts of pressures and all sorts of investor stuff, and you read the news, and this new company launches, and then this launches, and there's just like, and it can get very stressful. And so we were out at lunch at a beautiful sushi restaurant we'd never been before that was just walking distance from the office, and we sat down and we were talking about kind of these things that were potentially scary about this current situations. And we're getting into this and this and this fear and this fear and this fear and this fear. And then, we kind of like got it out, and then we kind of sat there, the food came, and it was awesome, and had this epiphany, like, let's say the company blew up, did amazing, and I had $10 million in my bank account. What would I have changed about the last 24 hours? The night before, I went on a fur bike ride on Venice Beach with Dimitri. We'd both spent wonderful quality time with our girlfriends in the last 24 hours. We went to work with our best friends on a project that we thought was important and that we cared about. And then we were eating amazing sushi with people that we loved. And I had this epiphany, like, what would I change? I am on the journey and it's awesome. Losing sight of the gifts of the now because of fears of the future is the trap. It's the deep trap. It's the most powerful trap. Always snapping back to the now and realizing there's nothing lacking. And more than that, sometimes it is overwhelming with gifts. The crapper cone of where you put your focus is very applicable to time and the present, and future fears versus present gifts. There's actually, let me take a few years back with my attitudes about money and resources. In just after 2000, I was working, actually a company that I started with Dimitri as well, called Citizen X, and it was a webcam community. And we had investment money, and at the time, it was going, and then the economy went bad, and then the investors freaked out, and so we're trying to make it work, and I really believed in it. That's where Hug Nation was actually born. So I was, in this community, there wasn't a Ustream, and there wasn't, a Facebook. Citizen X was the community. It was the broadcast mechanism. It was the reason that Hug Nation could exist. So I was trying to keep it alive and trying to get money going and trying to, but at the root of it all, I had this belief that making money on things that were wonderful and loving and brought me joy was somehow unfair or not right. And that resources and money needed to come from things that you suffer for and that you go to work to get. And so, not only that, but I believed that money was the root of all sorts of evil, and money made people be dishonest and made people evil, and it was this capitalist system that was responsible for so much evil in the world. Maybe evil is the wrong word. I don't really believe in evil, so take that with a grain of salt. And eventually, Citizen X, collapsed, and we had to disband it and move on because we just didn't have the resources. And looking back, of course not. I was running the whole thing, and I was vibrating, believing that money was bad. How could the universe possibly reward my mentality and my actions with abundance when I personally thought abundance was representative of greed or manipulation? So, I was pretty broke during those years too. I was actually living in the webcam house because I couldn't afford to live in my own place. I lived on, I was definitely below the poverty line, just kind of trying to make things work. A couple years later, I actually was working for a fierce capitalist, and he thought that I was, a nice little novelty. But he taught me a lot about his belief about commerce and about capitalism. And he said to me, our culture, our world, our economic system has no global messaging system. There's no way to, make an announcement that says, hey, you know what? We would like more organic farmers. So could we please increase the organic farming in this country? The only way the system gets that message is if people buy organic produce. That's how it works. You buy something as a message, as a vote to the system that this is what you want. And so if people want to support social good, they will put money towards it. If people want to get a certain type of music, they will put money towards it. They want certain this, they want certain this. Now, that puts a lot of onus on us, and we certainly learn a lot about who we are as people, as Walmarts pop up and small things, small companies with heart gets crushed. But the point is that when you start thinking like that, and start thinking, I'm voting with my dollar, then money becomes not this evil thing. Money becomes this system of... There's a police officer right outside the door. Money becomes... I've done nothing with money. I've worked for my money. I didn't steal anything. Okay, sorry. Money becomes a beautiful tool. It becomes a representative of energy. And so I started then not going, I have to pay this bill, or this is so expensive. It's saying, cool, I love electricity. I am happily spending money on this bill. I love this music. I'm not going to download it and not pay for it. I'm going to happily pay money to say to the universe, I want more bass nectar. You know? I want more of this. I want more of this. And it did two things. One, it let me spend money happily so that I saw this energy flow going towards things that I love. I'm voting. I'm making a difference with the way I spend my money. It also made me change my thought and saying, I deserve to get money for the things that I believe in. So if I wanted to make money doing a workshop, I made sure that I spent money on a workshop. If I wanted to make money as an artist, I made sure I spent money on art. The system requires that kind of flow. And as I started changing my thoughts about money, and as I started changing my thoughts about resources, I just started to realize that I had more and more and more resources. And more people were willing to pay me to do things that in the past I would have thought would have been hobby things, creative projects, you know, things that stretched my creativity and allowed me to really, work, but work that was really challenging and fun. And I still struggle, and I'm starting to, I still kind of go in I work part-time on money projects, and then the rest of the time I don't try to get money, and I do things like Hug Nation and First Saturdays and things like that. And I think part of that is because of my spiritual growth, and I would like to eventually get to a point where I'm simply doing things that I believe 100% in spiritually and creatively, and I find the resources to do those things. Again, a little hard to concentrate. There's a police officer that keeps walking in front of my door, and there's now a helicopter going overhead. So I hope this isn't too subversive what I'm talking about. There's a guy talking about the economic system. We gotta shut him down. Hey, I just mentioned Dimitri, and he's now in the chat room. He can... Well, hopefully I didn't say anything that would embarrass him. So, now, the thing that is important in all of this discussion about abundance, money, and resources, is that our culture whips us into this frenzy where we see money as a measuring stick, where we see our status, especially our bank account. Actually, bank account is not true, because who has money in their bank account? Instead, we go into debt to get stuff. But it's still part of that whole financial resources measuring stick. What we lose track of is that that measuring stick is a joke. That measuring stick means nothing. None of that we take with us. None of that affects the world. The only measuring stick that really feeds our soul is being true to our ideals. My grandfather, he talked about making the weight of your life matter for what you believe is important. And being able to spend the last 3 years of his life in that, as he was, as he would say, I'm reaping what I sowed, And so he would travel to these parishes and cities that he had spent time in and meet with people that he had showered love upon and lived in service to. And the rewards that he got were unspeakably amazing. The way that he was made to feel. And did he ever have a lot of money? No. But he was so rich in what he sowed from his life. And when you can snap into that mentality of like, wait, if I walk a righteous path, if I live according to the ideals that I believe in, if I live of service to something larger than myself that is a guiding principle or faith, then I am wealthy. And the impact I have on the world is a vibrational boost of such abundance and wealth. Jesus said that, a camel has an easier chance of getting through an eye of a needle than a rich man has of getting into heaven. And while I don't believe in heaven, the metaphor is that when you are hoarding stuff, when you are measuring your life based on the physical accumulation of resources and wealth and status, you can't have your arms full of that while you're also embracing the world and being loving and being open-hearted. On the contrary, when you can let go of your attachment to anything and sink into a present moment awareness of who you are and what you are and how connected you are to everything, well then, if you can realize that you are in this moment rich beyond measure and connected to everything, then what is there to need? The fact that I don't need to go pick that flower to have its beauty and richness a part of my abundance. The world becomes overwhelmingly rich. Life becomes overwhelmingly rich. The now moment becomes an infinite playground of resources. And when you can acknowledge that it's all connected, there is no reason to hoard or grasp, then you can share your gifts. Then you can give and be of service. And when that energetic flow opens, then you are becoming a vibrational match to receive. Not get, receive. And when you can, from a healthy place, gift, and a healthy place, receive, be unattached, then the flow just comes through you, through you, through you, through you. You'll have what you need, when you need, and the joy is not something measured by any sort of number or square footage, but in this peace of knowing that your life has meaning, and a meaning beyond your mind and your individual needs. It has meaning in a sense of harmony and peace with your fellow man and woman and sister and rock and tree and plant. Which is why these Tuesdays are so incredibly valuable and joyous for me. It's because it is a reminder of how incredibly rich we all are, and incredibly blessed and rich we are to have this ability through technology and connection and love to just be aware that we share the planet with people like this kind of, that can be open to this vibration, that can remind each other, no matter what we hear, that we are so blessed. We are so rich. I am so grateful for the opportunity to recalibrate and just, I feel like a Tuesday afternoon spent with you is like sitting in a bed of money. Whee, whee, whee. So thank you for playing in this bed of money with me. I am so grateful. Namaste. Now, let's have a Hug Nation hug. Wherever you are, grab yourselves by the shoulders. This body is filled with riches beyond comprehension. It doesn't take much of an accident or an injury to remind us that no Porsche, no fancy lawn, no jewelry is worth much at all when our body doesn't work like it should, or as best it can. So let's be grateful for this body and know that as long as it is allowing us to hear and see and love, we cannot be poor. And as we sit in that gratitude, acknowledge that sometimes we get so caught up in the stories and the personalities of our to-do lists, our story about what we need and what's lacking. And we get so caught up in that story that people that are in our way, that are obstacles to getting what we need, become jerks. They become enemies. But if we can seek deeper in ourselves and acknowledge that there is a deeper in everyone, we know that the beauty, the divine, the love is deep down in there. And let's allow ourselves to flow and burst through our shells and just be abundant and loving, and acknowledge that even the people that may act from places of anger or fear, we can look through that shell and see the love inside them. And so let's just take a second, take a couple breaths, and just embrace from our core to their core and know that everyone is far more alike than they are different. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the Love Warriors, happy Hug Nation. May your gifts flow, may your love flow, may you forgive yourself and others, may you be an ambassador in the world. You are a walking gift shop with your smile and your eyes. Thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your riches. Namaste.
You only live once. Enjoy the color.
Hug it out.